Welcome again. We are continuing our discussion about Central Europe as an investment location. I am here with Srini Vadali, our location selection expert from Deloitte UK. Welcome. So, as I understood from you, there are quite a lot of expectations towards the ideal location. Cost efficiency, labor arbitrage is still there, I suppose. But on the other hand, there are expectations for staffed and skilled workforce, technological infrastructure, and so on, and high customer satisfaction, and so on. How can these locations balance between these different expectations, which in several cases just showing next to each other?
Yeah, as I said, I think we covered this a little bit in the earlier part, right? Even though you assess a location on so many data points, you look at government stability, you look at the currency stability, you look at the number of universities, you look at the education system, number of fresh graduates, so many data points. But as I told, that there are two of them, by the way, of cost of labor and the talent pool. When I say talent pool, the skilled talent pool for that particular function that the client wants to serve from that location. They are absolutely non-negotiable. And we put weightages on the location framework. We assess and we agree that with the client. And as I mentioned, some over the years, I've seen cost as high as 70% weight and many years ago. But now cost and talent put together is 70%. So they are peers. They share the weightages equally, and they are absolutely non-negotiable. When it comes to the other elements, such as political stability and currency stability, as long as there are no major red flags in terms of, it's dangerous to operate, or the volatility in the currency is so high that the services will struggle to operate in a stable manner for a number of years. And unless there are major red flags, you're not going to turn down allocation. But cost and talent tend to be the key determiners.
Okay, thank you. So if we focus on Central Europe as an investment location, how has the value proposition of Central Europe evolved in the past some years? And what are the competitive strengths of this region compared to other regions in your scope?
Yeah, so when it comes to Central Europe, Central Europe has been a destination for shared service center, not in the recent years, but for a number of, at least for 2 decades that I could recall, right? Yeah. Hungary is a very good example. It's, I can recall conversations as old as 2012, 2013, where a C-suite, they have set up centers here. They've successfully operated. They've replicated with several organizations. It's a huge market, and it's a very mature market. So I observed 2 or 3 key things or trends with Central Europe in particular, even if we take Hungary as an example. Because it's been a destination for a number of years, it's not a newcomer. It has increased the maturity levels of the companies who have been here so many years, including the new entrants. And the talent, as you mentioned, the 2 generations or more, between generations, they are aware of shared service center and how it works and what it entails. So it's not a new concept. So the talent themselves is quite mature. And as a result, the tier 1 locations are pushing more towards, I'm not saying completely staying away from transactional, but the transactional element tends to be quite minimal. Also, what happened parallelly over the years is that the cost of labor has gone up. In Central Europe, say it's not as low of what it used to be, So these two phenomena happened pretty much at the same time. So it made a lot of sense for existing centers to minimize the transactional activity they keep, especially in tier one locations such as Budapest, and start delivering high-end services and the functions there, and have a very impressive portfolio of services they could deliver from that location. At the same time, they've started penetrating into tier two locations, and they've started augmenting their center in a tier one location with another center in tier two location, not far away, maybe 60 to 90 minutes drive. But what it made them is to do more of the transactional work from the tier two location, and deliver more high-end values. So these are some of the trends that have happened, especially with respect to some of the big markets in Central Europe.
And if we go one level deeper on a country level in Central Europe, which are the key differentiators or competitive advantages of the large investment locations in Central Europe?
Look, I don't think we'll be able to go through every country, but I picked some of them. I'll try and do a little bit of whistle tour of some of these key locations. So if I start with, I'll probably go a little bit broader than Central Europe, right? So let's try and keep it to continental Europe, for example. So if I start with Poland, right? Poland, again, very, very similar to Hungary in terms of being a mature shared service destination, big destination in the sense there's a greater supply of talent. So it has shared a lot of the phenomenon we just discussed in terms of a tier one location almost reaching saturation. They've started leveraging tier two, and again, in terms of some of these tier twos are so big that they can be comparable to some of the other tier one locations.
It's a clear competitive advantage.
Correct. Again, some of the client conversations in the recent times have indicated that there's a little bit of challenges in terms of finding talent, filling positions, and Poland. So it is definitely close to reaching its saturation point, definitely in tier one locations, even some of the tier twos. I'm going to cover Hungary and Czech Republic together, if that's all right, because they share a lot of common traits in terms of, again, not a newcomer in terms of countries from a shared service destination. They've been there for a good part of 2 decades now. And cost of labor is probably not as low as other Eastern European destinations, slightly higher. But as I covered earlier, companies have learned to leverage that high mature talent to do high-end functions, thereby taking that extra cost even in Czech Republic or Hungary, right? So that's the sort of what we see in there. If I go Romania, again, a huge market from a talent supply perspective, but relatively newer entrant as a shared service destination. I would probably say Romania, Bucharest, in the last 10 years rather than 20 years, if we take Hungary, for example. So as a result, even if I take Bucharest, and it tends to be kind of a common location in most of the long lists, because clients have realized that there's still some potential. It's not as saturated as some of the other tier one locations. So they want to put, because in terms of supply of talent, it's comparable or even bigger than Budapest, right? So Hungary has been running very hot for the last few years, and I think it'll continue to do so. We also see some signs of some tier two locations such as Cluj in Romania, where companies do a little bit of what's happening in Hungary as well. If I cover quickly on Portugal, Lisbon, Porto, very similar tier 1, tier 2. Portugal is almost, there's a perspective, there's a very strong supply of tech talent, digital. Again, given the location, it's very attractive. People want to live there. So it's almost become a melting point of different cultures. There's a lot of expat talent supply available there. And I know being in that key central location, they're even able to serve some of the Latin American markets, especially with their Portuguese language. They're not too far away from Americas, and they're not too far away from rest of the Europe. So, but Lisbon and Portugal suffers from the same saturation point that we talked about. But while Lisbon might be losing out on some of the markets, Porto is gaining because it has been the destination for some of the new entrants into that country. Baltic nations, right? So Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia. So they're relatively newer, and they predominantly serve the Scandinavian market because they speak the language, they share a similar culture. They do bring some of the language capability that are needed in that region. But some companies have set up services that could be delivered to Americas. Again, a lot of what is possible in the rest of the Europe is also possible. But again, smaller players in terms of that, and of the three, Lithuania tends to be a bit more mature compared to the other two. And then, of course, we also have like Bulgaria, Slovakia, Croatia, newer, smaller destinations. But I said, it's also possible to cover every country, but hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of where things are at the moment.
Yes, thank you. I think it was really comprehensive. Have you can you see any risks related to the growing GBS market in Central Europe? And can you recommend any strategies how to manage or mitigate these risks here?
Yeah, so in terms of a key risk, right, as I said, talent, right?
Yeah.
If you can hire talent and retain talent and sustain and scale or a number of years of being in operation, then you've done really well. And to kind of sustain the talent, it's not always possible because if you're in a location, highly likely that there's a good supply of talent at a competitive cost, which means more and more companies will enter the same location, driving the wages higher. A little bit of war for talent will also happen because you pay a little bit more money, and people probably jump from company to company. So all of that net will drive the cost up, and more importantly, from a company shared service operations perspective, you are not holding on to the talent that you need to deliver high quality services in a stable manner. So again, some of the points we covered earlier is, especially if a company has the experience of running a shared service center in a tier 1 location, they could probably look at tier 2 to tap into another pool of talent. Though not as big as the tier 1, but it allows them some additional supply of talent. And when you operate in tier 2, you could almost partner with universities. In some of these locations, you could influence what is being taught. So they come out, when they graduate, they actually come out with the skills that are readily needed in some of these big companies, which are kind of in that university towns, right? And in-house training department and investing in that, having a robust training department team where you have a constant supply of graduates going through the training process, and allowing you to kind of not entirely, but to a greater extent address that attrition problem that you have, rather than going to the market all the time, every time you lose a resource. So having that right workforce pyramid in terms of how much junior, mid-level, senior resources do you want your center to operate at, and to be able to feed the bottom of the pyramid from the fresh college graduates, and having a robust training department can actually make sure that there's a constant supply of that good talent who are trained and who could readily be put in doing the service. I mean, those are some of the key challenges. But at the end of the day, these all stem from the whole supply demand, right? When you have a limited supply of talent, and there's more demand in the sense that more company wants to create their shared service center in the same destination, you are going to disturb that balance, and that's almost always the root cause of all of these problems.
Thank you very much. I think our time is up, and thank you very much for sharing your opinion and giving us like a comprehensive view of the shared services sector and the investors' behavior towards Central Europe. I strongly believe that there is still potential for further growth, and really maybe a different growth, but like a further expansion of the global business services sector. Really hope we can prove it in the upcoming some years. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your thoughts. And thank you for you to watch this podcast.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure. Doing these sessions and always helps me to kind of step back and reflect on what the market is. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.